Welcome to the walkthrough of frequently made mistakes I observed while reviewing assignment 4 for my CS3251 class in the summer of 2023. Let's take a look first at some of the issues that I ran into with respect to different constructor problems. So here's a constructor that's supposed to take a size and a value. Don't use mReset here since you didn't initialize mArray in the first place. Instead, you want to allocate mArray in the base member initialization section. So you just have to kind of move this code a little bit. Next issue, here's a copy constructor. This solution is much too complex. Just put the initialization of mArray up here in the base member initialization section. It should go first, and that will then simplify this code. And of course, then you do the copy down here in the body of the constructor. Here's some problems I saw repeatedly with the move constructor. Oddly enough, you don't need to use move here at all. All you have to do, just like you did for assignment 3, is call release on source array, and then go ahead and have that released into mArray. So that'll simplify this a bit. Down here, similar sorts of issues. Don't be using mArray reset here since mArray was not initialized in the first place. Instead, allocate mArray in the base member initialization section by calling source array release to release the array from the scoped array from the parameter into mArray. Down here, make sure you use the base member initialization section properly. Once again, you don't need to be calling move, you need to call release. And this code should all be moved up into the base member initialization section. And this does not have to be here at all. That needs to be moved elsewhere. So this code can be cleaned up quite a bit. Down here, let's take a look now at some of the assignment operator issues. This code is way too complicated. You should always use the same canonical implementation. You used it properly in your assignment 3 solution. Just do the same thing here. That does not have to be this complicated. It should always look exactly the same. Down here, you need to use the array swap method instead of doing a swap of each field separately. There's no need to do that. Makes your code shorter and more canonical. Now let's take a look at the move assignment operator. Don't create a temporary array list. Just call swap to swap source with this, followed by source clear. So that can be simplified as well. Same issue here. This code can be simplified quite a bit by calling swap followed by source clear. This code is way too complicated. Continuing on with issues, make sure that you call clear on source after you swap it. So it's going to be properly initialized and it'll clean things up properly. Of course, you don't want it to destroy anything. That's the point of doing the move assignment. This method is too complicated. Now we're taking a look at the add method that takes a single parameter. It should do only one thing. It should forward to the 2-parameter version of add. In fact, if you take a look at your assignment 3 solution, you did it properly. So I'm not sure why you added the extra complexity here. This code is also not strongly exception safe because you're assigning a value into the array, which could cause an exception, which would leave the array in some inconsistent state. Let's take a look now at the 2-parameter version of add. A lot of people struggle with this method. It's probably the most complicated one in the whole assignment. Don't start out by throwing an exception if index is greater than m size. The whole point of add is to be able to insert a new element at a specific location in the array, which could very well be greater than m size. That's not an error. This check is inadequate. You need to do more things here. This code also doesn't handle the case where the index is greater than m size, in which case you need to fill a portion of the array with a default value of t between where it left off and where it begins with index. And this code is also not strongly exception safe. Notice that it's making changes to the array, and any of these changes could cause exceptions to be thrown, which would mean that you'd corrupt the original array. So you have to do all this stuff on a temporary and then swap it at the end. So you got to get used to doing that. Down here, make sure that you use scoped array again to enforce strong exception safety. Please don't use while loops or for loops. Use STL operators like fill or copy, depending on what it is you're trying to do. Here's remove. A lot of people struggle with this one too. This code is not strongly exception safe. If an exception is thrown, then the array will be corrupted. So you need to do that on a temporary scoped array and then swap it when you're done at the end. Let's take a look at some issues with operator subscript. So the operator subscript, as it says clearly in the specification, doesn't perform range checking. That's different, of course, than the get method that you also implement. So That means you don't do this. Don't have it check to see whether or not index is greater than or equal to M size. And that applies for both of the subscript operators. Down here in clear, I don't know what's going on here. You don't need a loop. All you need to do is just use marray reset. I'd probably call that first, but you don't need to be calling remove in any way, shape, or form. That's completely unnecessary. Down here, you just should be using the marray.get method, not this. This is not correct. And down here, likewise, you need to use marray.get plus msize, not this. And then the last thing, you can actually use mpointer sub index here in order to be able to do this code. This code is not wrong. It's just a little bit more obscure, if you will. So those were the problems that I saw. There's some people who didn't submit their code for review, or I couldn't get to it because they didn't give me permission. So you'll just have to take a look at these frequently made mistake reviews and address them by applying them to your code.